What is going on, everybody? It's Thursday night. You know what that means. Full Press Hockey Weekly Show is here on at Full Press NHL on Twitter. You got it at Full Press Coverage, Facebook, Full Press Hockey on Facebook, Full Press Coverage on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, the voice of Full Press Hockey, Jim Berenger, rocking alongside my NWO members, Chris Wassel and Ian Glennon behind the scenes. And yes, if you noticed the other day, the Ode to the Rockers are here. I promised it was going to happen. The Marty Jannetty, Shawn Michaels, Rockers colors. When I did a nightcap recap the other day, I was in this suit. So, bringing it back. What's up, gentlemen?
It's beautiful. It's simply beautiful. There's no other words for it.
That's it. It's beautiful, baby. That's it. You know what else is beautiful? We had a lot of news this past week. We can talk about some things. We're back again. We're doing that thing. And you and I had a Full Press NHL podcast over the weekend. Talked about the man, Erik Karlsson, getting traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins. 3-team trade. And it happened just before lunchtime on the East Coast.
Yeah, imagine this. You're sitting there on Sunday. You might be sipping your. Who am I kidding? You're enjoying.
You're at brunch.
You're at Sunday brunch. You're downing endless.
You're at brunch.
If you're not in New Jersey, you're downing endless mimosas. You're getting absolutely hammered, eating a bunch of bacon and French toast, eggs, and God knows what.
Exactly.
And then this hits. And if you were in Pittsburgh and you were enjoying a huge sandwich from Permonte's or some other lesser known places that are just as good in the Pittsburgh area, your stomach was pleasantly surprised by obviously the Karlsson trade, and there was much rejoicing, at least initially.
All over the place. I think you can. I mean, if you're a Sharks fan, you're getting what you're getting in this deal, but no one expects them to be good. But if you're in Montreal, you're in Pittsburgh, you have to rejoice initially. And, there's a lot to it. It's 3-team trade. The Montreal Canadiens get involved. We all knew that was going to happen. Pittsburgh and Carolina came down to Pittsburgh, Carolina. There were other teams, but once Carolina started doing what they were doing with their defense, you kind of knew it was the Penguins or it was nobody. And again, give credit where credit is due. Kyle Dubas taking a swing. But the fact of the matter is yes, Brady makes up a great point. The Sharks only retain $1.5 million over the lifetime of the contract going forward. So here's the deal. It's a mouthful. Pittsburgh gets Erik Karlsson. They get Rem Pitlick from Montreal, Dylan Hamonic, and a 2026 third-round pick from the Sharks. The Sharks get a protected 2024 first-round draft pick. Could turn into a 2025 first-round draft pick. Mikael Granlund, Jan Ruda, and Mike Hoffman from Montreal. Montreal gets a second-round pick in 2025, defenseman Jeff Petrie, goaltender Casey DeSmith, and Nathan Lagarde from all this deal, as well as Pittsburgh retains 25% of Jeff Petrie's salary. And guess what? Jeff Petrie's probably leaving Montreal too, and Montreal probably eats some of that money. So that's where the key is Montreal was able to move Hoffman and Pitlick without retaining any money. So they have retention spots going forward.
Yeah, having those as I like to say, having those 2 retention spots is huge. Again, Pittsburgh gives up a little money to save a tiny bit of money. I mean, it's laughable. I mean, when you break down the amount, Jim, I think it's like $62,500 difference or something like that between the two.
Yeah, because you get Granlund and Ruda off the books.
Yeah, and then you get that
and so Smith off the books, which equals $10 million of Karlsson or just about.
Yeah, it's really goofy. But Pittsburgh and I emphasize this, Pittsburgh temporarily gained $2.9 million in cap space. But there's something that we're going to need to get to later in the show where Pittsburgh had some hope of being able to do something with a certain player that they may not be able to do now based on certain injury news that came out this week.
Yeah, so look, we knew the Penguins wanted to get Erik Karlsson. We knew they wanted to upgrade their defense. And look, I want to get this out of the way right away. I'm not saying that he doesn't help their team. He does. He's going to help any team he goes to. However, he doesn't help a certain goaltending problem that this team has. And, everybody can say I'm a Tristan Jarry hater and I don't like this. I have nothing statistically, and I'm looking at numbers and what this team has done and how old this team is. The Pittsburgh Penguins, not sure that Karlsson is going to solve the problem between the pipes because you overpaid for Tristan Jarry.
It's true. Doesn't exactly help their team defense either, which they kind of needed, or their penalty killing for that matter, which they kind of needed late last year. That wasn't quite there. You can't give up 2 power play goals to Chicago. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying too. I mean,
Oops.
Again, Karlsson helps the power play. He's a Norris Trophy winner. He's a second reigning Norris Trophy winner to get traded. Since Doug Harvey from Montreal to the Rangers. The guy has 100 points, first time to Bryant. There's no doubt this guy's offensively gifted. And he's back to the form that he had in 2017 when he basically put the Ottawa Senators on his back and took them to the conference final, Game 7, where they lost to this Penguins team. The Penguins are must-see TV, no doubt. Crosby, Letang, Malkin, Karlsson, all that. The problem is his team is old. And they're taking one last shot at this thing. And that's the biggest concern for me in Pittsburgh right now is this team is old. It didn't get younger. It got older.
Older, yeah.
Especially on the back end. Letang's 36. Karlsson's 33. Crosby's 36. Malkin's 37. Carter's 38. And by the way, they're not a fast team either. Now, again,
They were. Yeah.
Again, I'm like Kyle Dubas. Sidney Crosby's still one of the best players in the world. He had 93 points as a 35-year-old last year.
Mm-hmm.
Do we expect him to do the same thing? Probably. But the thing is can Malkin do what he did again? Can all these guys continuously do what they did again? And oh, by the way, you need your goaltender to stop the puck, and the backup's Alex Nedeljkovic. I'm just not sold on it.
I don't think most people are sold on the goaltending. They're almost hoping that Pittsburgh sort of catches lightning in a bottle, scores 4 or 5 goals a game like a certain team did in New Jersey for a long stretch, gets basically like a buffer from a winning streak, and then sort of makes the playoffs. And then from there, who knows?
But this team hasn't been out of the first round of the playoffs since 2018.
That's the other problem.
And oh, by the way, this isn't the same team. And I know I may be repeating myself if people have heard the podcast, but this team is not the 2016-17 Penguins where they had to have a makeshift defense in 2016. Letang was back in 2017. They had good goaltending and Marc-Andre Fleury, Hall of Famer, and Matt Murray. And you know what this Penguins team reminds me of? Go back to that stretch from about 2010 to about 2015 where the Penguins were the best offensive team in the league. Defensively, they were awful.
Anybody remembers the 2012 NHL playoffs?
Yeah.
Just go look that up sometime. Just look up a certain round matchup between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. Sit back and cringe at any YouTube video you see from all the bad defense.
It's awful.
It was one of the. I mean, look, 80s hockey, we get it. This wasn't 80s hockey. This was something worse.
It was a lot worse.
Yeah, and I think and Kyle Chapman says it right. They those are games that should have actually been 10-7 if not for a few bounces. A lot of them you had some 8-5s and 6-5s and the irony of that entire series was this. After everybody bet the living daylights out of the over in that series, there was one game that went under, and it was the game literally that all the Vegas books put it up to an over-under of 8. And of course, naturally, that game was only 3-2.
Yep.
And then the final game went over anyway.
Yeah, it did.
Because literally they scored, I think, this is one of the hilarious things. It took them 60 minutes to score 5 goals, and it took like 13 minutes for them in game 6 to score 5 goals.
It was ridiculous. That series was nuts. And look, again, the Penguins, they definitely improved. This is a great yes, they look, both of us were very happy because the Devils had the Flyers in the next round. The Flyers were poo-pooed after they handled business with Pittsburgh, and then the Devils played the Rangers in the next round. They got to the Stanley Cup final again, and everything could have changed if Henrique doesn't score in Game 7 against Florida. So there's a lot of factors that went into that Devils run in 2012. But if you look at the Penguins, right, they need to figure out what they're doing because, as you mentioned it before, Jake Getzel is supposed to be reevaluated in 12 weeks of an ankle injury that was lingering at the end of the season, but was okay to train on and okay to skate on. But then in August, it's not okay to. It's just not getting better. Well, I'm not a doctor, but I've had a lot of injuries playing hockey. And they say the biggest thing for injuries to heal is rest. And I know I'm not the biggest guy that follow that, but putting your ankle in a hockey boot consistently does not help the injury get better.
Right. Here's the fun thing in this. By the way, we've all been wrong with this. I just talked to a certain COO of Cap Friendly. They just upped this yesterday. Pittsburgh actually wound up saving $3.13 million in cap space. Not that this makes much of it, a couple $100,000 here or there, but as he put it, and amusingly so, yeah, we're going to tie this in. As he put it to me, and I quote, Jake Guentzel timeline may potentially be altered to 10 to 12 weeks, which would cause him to only potentially miss the first 5 games of the season. They tend to think that reevaluation will be positive, which means, in layman's terms, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to be placed on the LTIR.
Which means Pittsburgh has to still make another move.
Yep. So here's what will ultimately happen, or we think. Pittsburgh, in theory, has to, or we think, has to sign one more forward, more than likely. It seems to be the goings of such. That forward is none other than Tomas Tatar.
Yep.
The amount being floated around, depending on who you believe in the blogo media sphere, whatever you want to call it, is anywhere from about 1.75 to 3 million, depending on who you believe. There's been all sorts of amounts. What we know basically now is that's all on hold.
It is on hold.
It's all on hold.
Unless he agrees to a PTO and signs for nothing.
Yeah, basically what will happen is Pittsburgh has to find somebody to trade, or has to find another team to love that is willing to take on one of their players, or they have to bury somebody, which means, again, they'll be down a roster spot. And again, there's lots of potential where they just try to pass someone through waivers and they get picked off. So there's all sorts of possibilities. There isn't a simple answer right now because, well, Jim, it's August 10th.
Exactly. It is August 10th. And I'm going to be honest, right? We're all trying to play doctor here with these injuries. Last year, you and I were pretty certain about Gabriel Landeskog throughout and up through the trade deadline and up through the start of playoffs. I'm going to stick with the reevaluation, and I will believe when Jake Getzel puts his foot on the ice playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, because ankle surgery, coming back from ankle surgery, getting ready for the regular season takes a little bit. He's not going to be in fine form. Again, if he only misses 5 games, this helps his team because he's his best scoring winger. Oh, don't forget he needs a new contract next season. Throw that into the mix. This team needs to figure out what it needs to do. And again, this is where you outbid yourself on a goalie the rest of the market didn't value that high.
Yeah, say they go and they sign Jarry for what, maybe 5 years 20, 5 years 17.75. So say
Right.
they sign him in the 3.75 to 4 million range. Well, you just saved yourself potentially $1.5 million.
Yep.
There's your money from. Again, it's not a huge amount, but when you start
But it is.
but in a way it is, because again, if the salary cap had gone up 3-4 million instead of $1 million, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No, because then everybody would fit nicely into everywhere. But again, the salary cap's the big winner, like it is right now. We're seeing this thing going all over the place, and why there's still a lot of good players still out there, or players taking 1-year deals who are going to get moved, and we'll get to that in a minute. But just stay on Pittsburgh for a minute, and you look, and this is why you look and you say, man, Ricard Raquel at $5 million a season. Go back to last year. Malkin, 3 years left at 6.1. I mean, that's not terrible. But again, and a lot of these guys, we brought it up, a lot of these guys got no move, no trade clauses.
Too many.
Too many.
Oh, and plus, you have several that are in the dreaded 35 plus category. Ow.
Look, as much as Kyle Dubas gets credit for making all these moves,
it's undefeated.
Yeah, it's pretty much undefeated. It really is undefeated. Credit for all these moves he makes in the offseason. Again, he's still not learning from his mistakes in Toronto. And it is you got to put a winning team and ice the best team available. Look, we said it last year with Nashville. Could all these guys really have repeat seasons? Look, I'll take Sid to do what he did again, but I'm not betting on Gino and Tang and all those guys to do it again.
I'm kind of worried about all of them, to be honest. You really just don't know.
Because age is a problem, and you can't bounce back from injuries in your mid-30s like you did in your 20s.
No. And anybody who has played the sport, not even at an NHL level or even anywhere close, or is just athletic in general, knows you just don't bounce back like you once
You
did.
used to.
It's just the reality. It sucks. Yeah, no one likes to say it, but it's a fact. And
it does. I mean, look, trust me. We balled last night. I'm still feeling it. So
yeah.
it's But staying here for a minute, like, look, you look at this division, and you look at Pittsburgh and where they are, and everybody's like, oh, they're a better team. Okay, they're a better team. Doesn't mean they're a playoff team or a top 3 team in the Metro still. They're in the same position they were last year with Washington. They're ahead of Washington. I'll give them that. But they're bunched with Boston. They're bunched with Washington. Who's missing the playoffs? Who's making the playoffs? And Detroit and Buffalo and Ottawa got better. Florida's still there. Islanders, Rangers, Columbus is better. You're just mixed up in a batch of teams. Now, if somebody asked me, oh, do you think Erik Karlsson moved the needle for Pittsburgh? No, not really. If he was on Toronto or another team where I knew they were going to legit be locked to make the playoffs, then yeah. But this team is not a Stanley Cup contender by any means.
No, we don't know. And it would take a lot.
The old line from Godfather Part 3, just when they think you're out, they pull you back in. That's been Pittsburgh over the last couple years. Like, we have this belief. But when you see this team's just good enough to get in the first round and they lose the way they do in the first round, just go back to 2021 against the Islanders. Yes, they were up 3-1 against the Rangers. Crosby gets hurt, but again, it comes down to defense. There was no reason Pittsburgh couldn't win game 5, 6, or 7 up in those games, multiple goal leads.
Oh, this is where this gets sobering if you're Pittsburgh. Right now, at least, and this obviously can change between now and October, the average effective age, now there's a key point in this. It's the average age of the current roster players on the team. Because remember, since Jake Gunsel is injured, he technically doesn't count at this time. Pittsburgh's average age is 31.8.
Old.
They are the oldest team in the league right now.
And they just nudged out the Islanders, Rangers, and Capitals.
Yeah. There's a whole host of teams right around 30, by the way.
Not good.
Yeah. There's quite an extensive list.
Funny how the Rangers went from the youngest team 3 years ago to one of the oldest teams this year.
Yeah, their effective age isn't bad right now. But
no.
But their age in reality is actually it's kind of funny that sort of construct is actually tilted the other way, which is with so many teams it's not. By the way, the one of the youngest teams, one you totally would not expect.
What?
And then there's one that is. Buffalo's one of the youngest. At
I figured that.
25.6 right now.
I figured that.
Now, then you start going down the line, you start getting down to some ridiculously funny and ugly numbers. Here's one that's interesting, though. You know who's younger than the Devils?
Who?
This is a little bit of a surprise. It's not by much. I mean, we're talking like a few days. The Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
You know, I mean, I get people wouldn't be, but it surprises some people. I mean, there's.
Yeah, I think Sanderson and Shabbat and Kachuk, all of Stutzel helps that number a little bit.
Little bit. Don't worry, Boston's still old, ladies and gentlemen. They're right in the 30s.
Well, I like what Kyle was bringing here. Sounds like the 02 to 08 Red Wings. You got to make it 09 because they went back to back Stanley Cup finals. They won 2 cups in that time frame. But again, that was a Red Wings team that just hung on to keep this playoff streak alive when they should have been rebuilding along the way too after that 09 season instead of basically. So, and then I think that's similar what we're seeing in Pittsburgh, right? You saw it in Chicago. They hung on. Pittsburgh's holding on. And there could be some lean years coming with this team.
Yeah, I guess it really, really comes down to, can you win? And
we're going to find out.
This is it. Let's put it this way. This is going to be really quick. Metropolitan Division is arguably the toughest in the NHL right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Jersey, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Rangers, Islanders together right there. Columbus is better, Philly,
And just from a style standpoint, you have several teams in that division that can wear down a team like Pittsburgh.
With their speed.
Right. Speed and forecheck. How did most teams beat Pittsburgh last year? Speed and forecheck. It feels like a broken record. And then you got a few past Jari or DeSmith, and it didn't really make a difference who was in.
And they didn't score on the power play a lot. And like Karlsson's going to help the power play, but again, you got to finish on the power play. You lose 4 to the Devils, you lose 4 to the Islanders, you're splitting here and there. This team is not. I mean, they're not a Stanley Cup contender. They're not. You could make the argument they're a top 3 team. You could make the argument they're 3 or wild card, but they're right in that bunch of those 10 teams that are probably battling it out for the final couple of spots left. I just don't see them because you have Nedeljkovic as a backup. You have Jari there. You got to hope Jari stops the puck, timely saves, all this stuff. But health is the big thing right now for this Pittsburgh Penguins team with the age they are.
If let's put it this way, if they are in the bottom half in man games lost, if they're relatively healthy enough where they're in the bottom half, maybe even bottom third for man games lost to injury, they might be okay. But if the injuries pile up, and especially early with the way their schedule is going to be set up and the teams they have to play to make the playoffs, man, I do not want to be Mike Sullivan. I don't care how much money I'm getting.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, look, Pittsburgh, they still got a good coach, still got a good captain, but again, not going to be easy. Again, they're going to be must-see TV, no doubt. But sometimes must-see TV doesn't make it into winning TV. So, again, great move to add Karlsson. They shedded cap space. They got bad contracts off. Same with Montreal, but again, still not a Stanley Cup contender. Still a bubble playoff team to me. I think that the contract of Malkin's really going to hamper this team. They should have cut bait last year. They should have made the hard decision last year with him. I'm okay with Letang coming back, but they needed to make a tough decision, and they're going to find out that they're going to need to make a tough decision because Jake Getzel's going to need to get paid too. So the Penguins, big trade on Sunday. The other big news that day was Matt Dumba signing an Arizona one-year deal, $4 million, and Chris mentioned a lot. There's still some free agents out there. A lot of teams with one-year deals going on. And to me, this is pretty much similar to what we saw last year in Anaheim with John Klingberg signs a one-year deal, except this contract doesn't have no trade protection. So guess what? Matt Dumba's probably going to a contender at the trade deadline at some point, along with Jason Zucker and a whole bunch of other guys.
Or the normal thing that Arizona does almost every trade deadline.
Yeah, pretty much.
But of course, the ramifications, obviously. Again, salary cap is probably about, as Kyle put it, 128. No. Dumba thought, he gambled on last year. It didn't work. Backfired completely. Had to take what he could get, which surprisingly, I honestly thought he was going to get less. But then I realized, well, it's Arizona. They pay a little bit. $500,000 sun fee, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
But still, you're hoping if you're Arizona that you're plopping him on the power play, he magically finds his shot. Because that's one of the other big things that has gotten lost in the last few seasons. Matt Dumba used to have this hard shot that would get through at least half the time.
Now it don't even get through.
Now
and his foot
speed.
And let's not even talk about his foot speed gone.
Just close your eyes.
I mean, you saw it the last couple of years against, what was it? Colorado,
Dallas,
St.
you name
Louis, Dallas. He was exposed so badly in those series.
And again, Arizona, for what it's worth, does have a pretty decent skating coach. Just saying. That might help a little.
If he can get that back, if he gets that back, he's going to be a hot commodity at the deadline.
Yeah. He just has to get there. There's no way in creation if he winds up with, like, say, 15 to 18 points through 60 games, he's getting traded to anybody.
Nobody's going to want him. No one's going to want that. But then again, you never know because teams are always looking for shots on the right side.
It's true. I mean, look at how. I guess you could technically say it. Gostisbehere kind of resurrected his career a little bit in Arizona. I mean, remember he had that awful year in Philly where he couldn't do anything. He got bent. Everything that could go wrong did. He wasn't producing.
Went wrong.
And he goes to Arizona. He piles up a few power play points, and magically he turns it into something halfway decent.
And he goes to what, Carolina?
Yeah, he ends up in Carolina. Does all right.
Not a bad thing. Gets to the conference final, loses. Okay, that's not bad. If if Dumba can do some of that, yes, at a team like Toronto, Tampa, somebody's gonna want him. But he has to get there, like you said. He has to get
Yeah,
there.
the two.
But this Arizona team's coming, and they're gonna be a better team. Not they're gonna be a playoff team. Forget it. That ain't happening for a long time. But they're gonna be better.
Right. And, again, like we said, he gained some foot speed. He gained some confidence with his shot. Somebody will eventually come calling. Just a question of to me, he has to do both. And I could be wrong. I mean, you never know with this league sometimes.
Well, a team like Tampa could bury him on like the third. He could be like a sixth, seventh defenseman where you don't have to use his foot speed.
It's true too. It's always possible. I mean, we saw it with a certain player that still wound up getting paid in Columbus.
Damon Severson.
2 cent head. All the talent in the world.
I just don't know if the system that he was playing in the last couple of years really was effective. We're gonna see what happens in Mike Babcock's
That's going to be
system.
wild. We don't. Anybody knows what Columbus is going to do, and I think even people in Columbus don't really know either.
Have no idea. Have no idea. All they know is it's Adam Fantilli, baby. That's it.
Still one of the greatest signs I've seen this year.
I saw that. I was like, that's awesome. That was awesome. But yeah, go guys, go check AEW Dynamite last night. That was a great sign. They were in Columbus. Somebody put an Adam Fantilli Bebe sign up. But look, Columbus is gonna be an interesting team just because the unknown factor of Mike Babcock. He's saying all the right things. He's coming out doing all the right things. I want to see the product on the ice because you got Provorov, you got Severson, you got talent on that team. If the injury bug, if they stay healthy, could Columbus get back to where they were prior to going downhill?
Okay, I'm going to say this. I'll temper it a little. Damn Debbie Downer. No. They'll be better. They'll be better.
I don't think they're going to be a playoff team,
I've got 3 big concerns, and one of them is Boone Jenner. So for those that don't know, Boone Jenner has been shut down probably, I would argue, at least the last 3 seasons due to a back issue that is not going away. So
that's not a good thing for your number one center.
Number one center.
Yep.
Captain
Which
they
really
of the
don't
team,
have.
by the way. Or at least right now, captain of the team. Nobody knows what's going.
Nobody knows.
But it's a huge concern. Patrick Laine is not the most healthy player on the face of the planet. No one. The key word in this is nobody is saying that these players are injury prone. It's just the reality of there are certain injuries that you don't quite recover from, right? And look, Boone Jenner's starting to get up there in years. And when you consider a back injury, that effective age cranks up very quickly, sadly. And that's a big concern. Then you have, what's on defense, which while it's improved, is it going to come together? Is Zach Werenski going? There's too many questions without really having much in the way of answers. And they could be a surprise, but it could kind of go as expected.
Right. But I think they're definitely an improved hockey team.
There's no way this team's going to be flirting with the number 1 draft pick this year. Unless they have 550 man games lost to injury again.
Right. And if that happens, then they're getting a number 1 pick, and Columbus will just add another top tier player to go with Fantilli, and that's where they're going to be. And you look at the board, right? And you look at and let's throw another name out there that just signed. Martin Jones signs in Toronto. 3-headed monster now in Toronto. You got Samsonov, Joseph Wall, and Martin Jones. Again, I think this is an area where if Jones has to go down, he goes down, because you can't risk Joseph Wall going on waivers. You can't.
I believe he's not waivers exempt.
I don't think
I don't
so.
I don't I don't remember I don't remember seeing it.
Doesn't sound like it from what I was listening to in Toronto radio. It doesn't sound
Yeah,
like it.
Fan 590 was pretty adamant about this. So I'm gonna tend to actually believe them here.
And to me, I mean, look, it's a great safety net in case somebody gets hurt. He did have a good season in Seattle,
Yeah.
but Joseph Wall is the future of this team. I look. I watched the kid play. I saw him in Madison Square Garden, and I was advocating for him to be in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
He gives this team stability between the pipes.
Oh, you're gonna like this. Obviously, Toronto amusingly has one of the weirder cap space numbers in the league.
Yeah,
They're still over the cap.
I know they
It's
are.
just funny. I mean, you look at. I don't think this late in the offseason I've seen it where a team had a double-digit LTIR hit and a double-digit over the cap hit like this.
That's ridiculous.
And they can carry it only because your actual perceived cap space has to be 10% over or less, which it
Yep.
technically is.
Right.
But I mean, if
And oh, by the way, let's throw in the fact that this fan base is actually relatively calm. That Matthews' extension has not been announced yet, or Nylander. It seems like everything's okay right
everything's
now.
okay. Yeah,
Right now,
almost weirdly too okay. Oh, by the way, the Toronto Maple Leafs are also the favorite to win their division.
yeah,
No pressure. No,
no
no.
pressure.
Sheldon Keefe gets the essential, what you think, year-long vote of confidence?
I don't think
I
so.
think so.
He doesn't have a new contract. They didn't give him one.
Yeah, this is it. You either win now
This
or you may
or
be
you're
gone.
not getting.
It's a good question.
Maybe the Jays have been taking over the Toronto airwaves right now. I
Give
mean,
it a
look,
month.
give it a month because when training camp rolls around and Austin Matthews doesn't have an extension, that's all they're going to
Yep.
talk about.
And Nylander starts making subtle little like jabs. Oh, the fireworks are going to begin early.
The fireworks are going to start. And look, and then you could say the same thing right now in Winnipeg. Or why is Hellebuck still there? Well, it's the market. You look at it. Everybody says, "Oh, well, the Sharks." And I'm not the first person to say this, but I know I'm the first person that was talking about returns before prominent people were. And I'll say this:
Mhm.
the returns are what the returns are going to be. Teams like Winnipeg or Ottawa, we're not going to get what they were going to get because they want to still win. Same with San Jose. You knew exactly where it was going to go. This is what they were going to have to give up. This is what you're going to have to take on. And you're going to have to figure out a way to move it later on or keep it because you have to get to the cap floor.
Damn.
So the returns are going to be with the returns, but this is a good hockey trade for all parties involved when we circle back to the beginning.
Something else, right? Actually, like, you can't really say there was an out-and-out loser of this deal.
No, there isn't. And again, winners and losers of trades, and you can't project that right away because you don't know. You just don't know. It's like drafts. You don't know. But we talk about free agent extensions. Well, we're still waiting on a couple of big RFAs. Alexis Lafreniere, Trevor Zegras have still yet to have extensions.
Now, again, apparently the Rangers are magically waiting on something. And the amount's out there. It's been out there for what feels like the whole summer. $2.5 million.
Over 2
Over 2
years.
years.
It's 2 years times 2.5 million.
So it's just a question of, I guess, when.
Exactly.
And Zegras is a little bit different of a story, obviously. There's another RFA that might generate a little bit of
Oh,
intrigue.
Evan Bouchard, yeah. We need to throw him in there.
That's gonna be a fun one. And of course, obviously, the news that we kind of touched on that happened about a week ago when Jeff Jackson stopped becoming, stopped
The
being
agent.
Connor McDavid's agent, and now is his boss of a boss. Could be good for Bouchard, actually, in the long run.
Definitely could be. But again, it's August. It's August 10th, and these guys are not signed yet.
Yeah, it's the old Roy Rogers commercial song, Jim. See you in September.
See you in September. But I mean, Zegras needs to be in camp.
Yeah,
Lafreniere needs to.
Look,
both those guys, all these guys need to be
they
in
have
camp.
said, both of them, especially Zegras, has reiterated quite a few times, will not be in camp without new deal. Pepper.
The face of your franchise.
Pepperbeak, you're up.
You're up, Verbeek. Oh, and by the way, you signed Leo Karlsson to an entry-level deal. And you didn't take Adam Fantilli.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you signed Troy Terry to a 7-year times $7 million deal.
Yeah, you took some risk, Pat.
Yeah, you took some risk, Pat.
Hey, maybe.
And you got to get Zegras done. You got to get him done.
Got to get Zegras done, and you got to figure out what some point.
You got to move John Gibson, right?
You would think so.
You would think, right? I mean, this is why I don't understand why Pittsburgh didn't address bring the hometown boy home.
Did they have the pieces to make it happen?
Maybe
it almost seems like.
But Korpisalo is out there for 5 times $4 million.
It doesn't. There are things in the NHL landscape that there is no way to make sense out of, and it's not even saying that it's above our pay grade or anything like that. It's just some other realm that is a mystery because really of these things. And look, John Gibson is one of them. I mean, you could look at the numbers and say how bad he was last year. He gave up all these goals and everything else. But in there is a rather good goaltender. You get, for the lack of a better term, it's not Stockholm syndrome, but there is some kind of like trauma effect where it's like, you see 2-3 pucks go in and you watch the defense just sit around and it's like, is this really worth it? And you just check out.
And he did that
a lot. And look, that's on the player too. We're not saying that that John Gibson is completely blameless here. That whole team was
But it is
that whole team is.
But that whole team's a mess.
They gave up at one point last year, and I think Jim and we even joked about it on this show, and Ian even chimed in later that the Anaheim Ducks in early February gave up, and I can't believe I'm saying this number. I know the number dipped. 40.1 shots on goal at one point a game.
Damn, man. That's ridiculous.
It was just something. Let's put it this way. You figured they weren't going to finish with that. By the way, it was 39.2 at the end of the season. But still, it's just a number that we haven't seen
39 shots you're giving up a game. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's awful.
These are things that we didn't even really see in the 80s, except from 1 or 2 teams. And again, it's a great point. I will argue, maybe until my dying breath, that it was more than that.
I still think it was more than that. Some favorable shot counts.
Because we have joked with DFS contests and things like that where that hit was missed or there were 3 or 4 shots that definitely counted and certain props even, and it's like
But you look at the shot sheet after and it's like you're missing a couple of things. And look, again, we're going to see what happens because there's still a lot of big names that could get moved at that deadline. I mean, we're still months away from it. And again, you see teams, again, the salary cap's the big winner. You see guys taking 1-year deals, betting on themselves, potentially get traded later on. Look, Devils signed a couple sneaky good players. No sec. You just signed Calfoot. That's a nice move by them. Again, you got to just look at the divisions, look at the players, look at the moves, and this is what we do. We analyze and we break down. But when most of the pundits agree on the Karlsson trade not improving the team that much, Again, it's a great trade. He's a good player. He improves any team he goes on. But it's not like it's a needle mover like it would have been anyplace else.
Or even several years ago, say before pandemic, when Karlsson was a more elite. And I'll say this: I think he was misused even in Ottawa to some points
I definitely think
because
he was.
he was a better defenseman than he was made out to be. To that end, and
But what he did in 2017 is undeniable.
Look, it's like the old. There's two constructs that can be true. 2017 and last year were incredible.
Absolutely.
And also now he's an aging defenseman on a team full of aging players.
We're going to see what this team's all about this year.
I can't wait.
I can't, like I said, it's must-see TV every time. When the Penguins are on, you're going to want to see it.
But we did not forget one important segment, Jim. For the bettors, over City. You're going to see. Wait till you see the first 40, 50 games for Pittsburgh.
Chris,
60% over.
Before we get out of here, do we have, I mean, it's probably way too early, but I bet you some degenerate site has it out there. Opening night, Chicago, Pittsburgh, what's the line? If you have it. If you have it. For the degenerates out there.
By the way, laughably enough, the over-under is only 6.5.
It's not a bad number.
At least right now, that's not a bad number, and I'm hammering that over.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. For those that don't know, actually, DK has most of the opening lines right now.
All right. So, I mean, look, I expected it to be around 6. With both defenses, both teams bad. But, again, let's see what happens. Look, Pittsburgh's going to be out for some revenge. It's Bedard's first game that night. But there's still a lot to get done. Again, a lot of people shocked that Tar's not still out there. Things got to get settled.
Crazy, right?
There's still free agent signings bumping here and there everywhere. But, we'll be here rolling with you. Any major stuff breaks, we always come on here, do this thing with you. Training camp's going to be right around the corner, and we're going to ramp it up. Be back with you all the time, every week, all the time, giving you the entertainment. Like the Rockers, baby, high energy all the time for the ladies out there, too, because those guys, they're one of the best tag teams, just never won the tag team belts, but they did. Go read about it in 1990. But everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight. Full Press Hockey Weekly, at Full Press NHL on Twitter, at Full Press Coverage, Full Press Radio Network, Full Press Coverage on Facebook and YouTube. Get it, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, fullpresshockey.com as well. For Chris Wassel, Ian Glennon, my NWO members, also part of the Rockers, I've been your host, Jim Behringer, the voice of Full Press Hockey. Guys, enjoy the rest of your night and the weekend.